Parliament because the parliamentary inquiry into the Road Accident Fund started yesterday with officials outlining just how claims are processed. Now, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts initiated the inquiry in June to investigate the Road Accident Fund's financial state amid numerous allegations of maladministration as well as corruption. Deputy Minister of Transport, Mkhuleko Hlengwa, says the inquiry is running parallel to a legislative review that has been conducted by the department. For more on this, Mkhuleko Hlengwa does join us on the line from Cape Town now. Deputy Minister, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us here on AM Report. Really good to have you on. I just wanted to ask how your process with regards to the review, because the Scopa one is running parallel, I believe, to your very own review. Would you be able to share just how far you are when it comes to that and what it is perhaps you found thus far? Good morning.
Thank you very much, Ngwena. Good morning to you and the viewers. Well, maybe at the outset, one must say that the Scopa process is a confirmation of our own observation that there is fundamental problems within the ecosystem of the Road Accident Fund, and therefore it is necessary for us to institute interventions. Part of the work we are currently doing is finalising the Road Accident Benefit Scheme, the RAPS bill, which we are finalising for onward transmission towards Cabinet and therefore to Parliament, where amongst others it will introduce no-fault systems, a defined schedule of benefits within the Road Accident Fund. We're looking at capping the benefits of loss of earnings in terms of what would be paid out. We are looking at ensuring that foreign nationals and travel visas have got insurance to avoid a situation whereby we have to pay the exorbitant amounts that we are currently paying. You will know that we've recently indicated we've had to pay some 546 million rand to foreign nationals. And we are looking at paying in annuities as well to avoid the lump sum kind of payments that we are doing. That's part one, which is the legislative review process to recalibrate the Road Accident Fund to make sure that it's fit for purpose. Secondly is there's current issues, obviously, that need our immediate attention now. And we've already put in place an interim board, having dissolved the board in July. We've advertised for that board. And secondly, we have got a high vacancy rate, particularly at executive level, including in the CEO position. All those positions have been advertised, and the board is in the process of making sure that we fill those vacancies. And so we are stabilizing the entity from a governance point of view. The third stream is then to say there's of course, the important issue, which is paying the claimant and resolving the backlog. The interim board has put in place at our direction a payment plan, particularly for backlogs, and they aim to disperse some 4 billion rands every month over the next 8 months to make sure that the claimants that have not been paid or outstanding and meet the requirements actually are paid out. This is all in a bid to make sure that the challenges of old are responded to, and that we are able to level the playing fields, clean the ecosystem, and clear the wards to make sure that RAF is actually agile enough. So the scope inquiry is important in that regard, therefore, because they are looking at the vantage point and the government's challenges.
Deputy Minister, and I think that is such a substantive answer that gives so much detail, and I appreciate that. And maybe I can start with the last point first. When you say that 4 billion that's said to be dispersed to the backlog and those claimants, 4 billion over 8 months, I believe you said then, that's 32 billion over that 8-month period. Would that disbursement be in line with the critique that you've already put forward with regards to how you cap those benefits, how exactly you detail those benefits, or would that still be based on the old system, which you've already found is currently faulty and has quite a few issues at hand?
Well, regrettably, we're going to have to pay on the current framework, current protocol as things stand, because that's the law as we have it. But that's why I was indicating, therefore, that this is almost a three-pronged approach. The legislative reforms are the long-term intervention to make sure that the entity is stabilized and is viable and sustainable, even particularly at a financial point of view. And why this is critical, you will know that the Government of National Unity has put in place as part of the medium-term development plan and the priorities, the lowering of the cost of living. And so it follows that the RAF revenue generation stream will have to be reviewed, because we get the money from the pump, which is about R2.18 per litre, giving us some 48 to 52 billion rands per annum. Now, that funding model in its current form is not sustainable. And so what we also need to do is begin looking at other revenue streams, and hence the insertion about how foreign nationals in particular will have to pay their own insurance, which you would know if you travel around the world, your visa requirement requires you to have travel insurance. That's not the case in South Africa. Why this is key, lastly, is because the actual calculations at times put us on the back foot, because you will have claimants from Europe, from the US, and then have to be converted either to euros or dollars, and that has got a substantive negative impact on the fiscus of the fund.
All right, so then if we talk about all of that, the recalibration that you've been speaking about with regard to that benefits bill, as well as the interim board and trying to finalize a permanent board, plus the number of people that perhaps aren't in the company itself or the RAF itself, when do you get to stabilize that entirely? Does that mean that it's a minimum of an 8-month period, because you still have to do things in accordance with that 8-month period when it comes to paying out? Is that going to be the same when it comes to hiring as well as recalibrating the road accident fund?
No. So the board has already been advertised. So we've got an interim board because we dissolved the board in July. We now have got an interim board which we've put in place for 6 months. We've advertised the board. We have gazetted the names of those that have been nominated under applicants for public comment, so that we as the ministry can finalize the appointment of a new board. So within the 6-month period, we anticipate that we would have concluded that. Secondly, the processes of recruitment of the executives from the CEO, Chief Claims Officer, amongst others, closed on the 28th of September. And so normal HR recruitment processes are underway. So all of this is running parallel. The fact that we've got an 8-month program, it is my expectation that the new board, when we're appointed, will continue with that, because we are clearing a backlog so that there's functionality at the end. So there isn't one that waits for the other. The interim board is well within its fiduciary powers to continue with the processes which we have them to undertake.
All right. Deputy Minister, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about other salient issues happening in and around the transport sector, particularly that of operating licenses and the like for the taxi industry, including the tensions between taxi operators and e-hailing operators. What exactly is the solution? And if we know what the solution is, why have we not been able to institute it, and how long is it going to take?
Well, you would know that the National Land Transport Act was promulgated. We have published the regulations in the Gazette on the 12th of September, and therefore that act is now operational. Amongst others, it recognizes the e-hailing as part of public transportation, and therefore the requirements for permitting are now in place. We are in the process of automating the permit regime to make sure that there is equality within the ecosystem and transparency and efficiency. We are working with the Minister of Police, Minister Creasy, in fact, has convened now in the past few months 2 high-level meetings where we are working with law enforcement to plug into their ecosystem for the purposes of deployment for safety and security. Above and beyond what we as a department has done, working with provinces is in hotspots, we have deployed traffic law enforcement through the RTMC, an entity of the department, particularly in Gauteng. The issue is around routes and permitting, and that is now our focus so that we can be able to deal with those issues. The issues are of priority for us because they are about the safety and security in the main of commuters, and we are constantly engaging with the likes of Santaco and NTA and other relevant entities so that we can bring about peace and stability. But permitting is the priority, because if you sort out that ecosystem and standardize and take out the corruption which is in the PERs, pitting associations against associations, because that's the breeding ground for the corruption, then we've taken big strides in resolving part of the challenges. But having now published the regulations in September, we are miles ahead from where we were before, because we have got the legal framework now to intervene.
Deputy Minister, you would know as much as anybody that the primary issue and the things that they fight about the most are going to be routes, because those routes offer them the best chance for financial success. Does this mean that even with this regulation, we're going to have to find ways to regulate which routes are offered to which organizations and how exactly that is mandated, and then ensure that law enforcement is in place for this? Because right now it is that creates the fighting that you see along these lines, whether it be within the taxi industry itself or with e-hailing operators.
Well, it's that and the second point, so I agree with you. Of course, route management is our priority, and we are looking at that within the broader ecosystem, working with the associations and umbrella bodies. The second one is the oversaturation of taxis within the sector, and therefore, because of that, they are now having to fight over the routes. So the permitting issue is of critical importance because it standardizes and regulates how you get a taxi and so on. And maybe the third aspect is around the de-risking of financing within the taxi industry itself, because that plays a critical role in how they respond to their financial challenges. And so we are looking at the taxi recap fund as part of how we de-risk. I mean, the issue is the interest rates which they have to pay exorbitant. What you and I would pay, the taxi operator would pay, are wholly different, and that in itself has caused the kind of tensions that we see. So we are engaging finance institutions. We are looking at funds within the ecosystem to say how best can we assist so that we can de-risk and de-escalate the tensions as well. So it's also a multi-pronged approach, because we have to look at the ecosystem. And then lastly is about professionalizing the taxi industry in its entirety as well, so that it's fit for purpose and works in a business model which is going to benefit the operators, the commuters, and the drivers.
Yeah, we've seen something of that sort actually being launched, I think, just yesterday by the Gauteng Premier, Panyaza Lesufi, speaking about being able to pay taxi operators, etc. So doing away with cash would be an interesting portion. Deputy Minister, I've got 30 seconds, but I need to ask you about the scholar transport situation in your province too, in KZN specifically. Are we finding solutions? Have you been able to speak to the MMCs of transport, of education, and trying to bring that together?
Engaged with the Minister of Basic Education and have requested that we revive the Interdepartmental Committee on Scholar Transport. From a transport side, we are ready. I'm pretty certain that she is at the tail end of finalizing her team as well, which is going to look at scholar transport. Our dilemma is that 4 provinces have got scholar transport in the transport department and 5 in basic education. So we need to standardize the norms and standards and how we operate, and then begin cascading down to the provinces and localities. And the last point is the funding challenge, which we have to look at, because provinces have got shortfalls and therefore the demand is not met. We are trying to plug shovel bicycles as part of the assistance. So we are ready on our side. We're certain that Minister Kwahobe will, probably by the end of this week, following our meeting last week, be in a position to report back favorably, and the interdepartmental will be up and running to respond to those challenges.
Deputy
so the
Minister,
interventions are...
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Look, Deputy Minister, we've got some coffee, we've got some warm chairs. Please, come and join us in studio. It would be great to have this conversation with you face to face. I promise you the engagement is a whole lot better. We'll even give you more time. How about that?
I'll take you up on that. I'll definitely
Thank
not
you.
say no to coffee in the morning. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. The Deputy Transport Minister, Mkhuleko Hlengwa.